So this is my first TED-like talk, so please bear with me. The title of my talk is Robots to the Rescue. I am putting up my disclosures, and of course I have collaborative efforts with many people. I come from RIC, and those in the Chicagoland are probably feeling very fortunate to be near the Rehab Institute of Chicago. We've been embracing technology and innovation for a long period of time. I wasn't actually there when it started, but I can tell you, about midway through that line, I began my career, and I've been happily working there ever since. RIC has 6 federal designated sites, and the one that I'm going to hopefully give you some insight in is about our NIDR, which is National Institute of Disability Rehabilitation Research. This is Paul Baccarita. He's well known because he was the forefront of neuroplasticity, and he came from the rehabilitation side. He actually was working in Madison from Mexico City, and he let us know that there's neuroplasticity in all systems, and rehabilitation has really been a believer in that process. There's been an explosion of technology, from wearable sensors to robotics, to orthotics, you name it. There's just a number of technologies out there that we now have in our capacity to use. And the vision of the technology and robotics is really to create opportunities. Opportunities have been created for substitutions, such as power chairs and augmentative communication, but we're now bringing them into the areas of neuroplasticity. Robotics is that branch that deals with execution and operation and, oh boy, I can't really read this, structural disposition and manufacture of the application of this principle, so that we can, oh dear, sorry about this. And it has to do with the informational feedback and processing. If you Google hits, it started out low and now it's sky high, so we see there's an exponential interest in involvement in robotics. And I think that there's really 4 reasons that are driving this trend, and that is we're able to accurately, in a robotic system, measure impairments. That may not be that important to everyone in the room, but for us trying to figure out how to improve things, it's very important to get a quantification. It also can give a controlled content, and you know the compliance, and you've got really accurate information, and it can really increase the practice and the drive which we've got for the learning. They're going to improve it for you guys. And the issue is that new innovations create new innovations. There's what I call a manifest destiny of technology that is impressive and is very important. I want to talk about one that we're all familiar with, and this is our hometown hero, and it's not the president, it's Michael Jordan, where you start out at about 19 inches and you end up being a 6'6", point guard or whatever he was, I don't know. I know he played basketball, and he was adored. So we're going to talk about an ankle impairment, and this we know is there's many reasons for the ankle to have problems when you have cerebral palsy. There's difficulty with muscle tone, there's difficulty with weakness, maybe even difficulty activating the proper sequence of muscles. And how many people are told to go home and have a stretching program? And everybody goes, yeah, I'm going to have a stretching program. But how many actually do the stretching program? And in fact, it's very difficult because you allow just the therapist to do it because there's an end feel. Is that important to the therapy program? So there's sort of a basic idea that stretching is important and it's recommended, but there's very little evidence if you do a systematic review or any kind of research in it to support this very, very basic principle of physical therapy and the treatment paradigm of the ankle. So we, making a long story short, we developed a robotic stretching device that we could combine passive movement of the ankle with an active treatment paradigm. And because we live in the day and age where we can tie it to computer feedback, we tied it to a gaming principle. In this case, we call it intelligent versus stupid stretching, and kids love it when I say don't do stupid stretching, do intelligent stretching. It knows how fast to move, how long to hold, and how hard to do the stretch. There's torque sensors in that foot plate, and we can put up EMG signals to look at the muscles and this sort of thing. And this is sort of a graph of what we're going to be seeing, or the engineers would be seeing, to looking at the excursion of the joint. The cute thing about it is that when we were thinking about it, and I was paired with the engineers, I said, well, some of my most difficult patients are the 12-year-old boys who they're not going to do anything you tell them. And how about if we have something where they could get their passive stretching while they're doing their homework, and then they can play games at the end. So they put in a passive component, then they did an assistive active. And in that case, when the computer senses movement, it will correct it so that there is that identification with the target, and the child will be able to fly the helicopter through the wall or miss the exploding bomb. And then if they get that passive range and they get out of the passive range, they get resistive training. The robot senses that and then adds some resistance. So it's not just, okay, you're moving your ankle, you're moving it, you're getting the range, and now you're strengthening it. And you're doing things that are kind of fun, and it's also kind of cognitive as well as you're feeling which direction, and you're sort of tying in a lot of elements of the program or of movement. And so our paradigm is you do the intelligent stretching, then you do voluntary movement training, and then we did some quantitative outcomes using this really fancy little robot, which you'll see here. And one of them will start moving because it's supposed to show you the paradigm. And as you can see, once you get the passive range in blue, the active range is the yellow. So actually, the most important outcome here is going to be that active range of motion improvement, not just passive. We also had a robotic, we had one engineer who had a grant where we had the teenage kids in high school program some of the games. So we had the lab-based, and that was great, but our real thought was, let's get it into the home. Let's get it home so people don't have to drag into RIC, because the parking there is about, $40 a half an hour. And that's not quite reasonable if you're going to do something that is going to be useful and intensive. So this is a unit that was designed to go in home. And you can see, you can have like the little happy researcher then, or the clinician, if they're ever happy, contact by cell phone on the upper left hand to evaluate, are you doing your stretching, because we know if you're naughty or nice, and we also know what parameters you're hitting. So are you getting your range of motion, are you getting your activity that we're expecting, and that can be adjusted in not real time, it's probably a little bit delay, but there's some big advantages to having it done in the home. So we were lucky to get, we recruited our lab-based, and we completed that study. And then we looked and compared the lab-based kids to the in-home. And we had, maybe 18 in the lab and about, I don't know how many, maybe 20 in-home units. And they were randomly assigned in terms of who would get which one. Would you come to the lab, or would you get your own unit? And this occurred in Chicago. It is a very easy climate to recruit, thanks to all of you that are interested in helping out with this, that we could see that when we measured outcomes, and I'll tell you what these are,
The pediatric Berg balance scale is the ability to balance, and the before and after measures for both groups are shown there. The balance improved. There is something called selective control of the lower extremities, so the ability to isolate your movement of your foot improves. And then the modified Ashford score, that's how much we know the muscle tone is, that declined. So those were all very encouraging. Also, the changes in the timed up and go improved, and that's how quickly you can get up and move, and that has a lot to do with your ankle when you think of it. A 6-minute walk time, and I think, what's that last one over there? Oh, 10 meter. How fast you can walk 10 meters, like me walking across the stage. And then what I really like about, and for those of you that know me in one way or the other, I think I am a wannabe engineer. What I really liked about this is that you can get information very precisely about the range of motion. They can calculate stiffness, viscosity, and a number of principles that will help us understand the muscle. But in this case, I'm just looking at the changes in the strength. The strength of the dorsiflexors improved. And what's really interesting to me is that for the longest time, and those who know me, I've done a lot of injections of toxins, I weaken the gastroc. And here, we know that the gastrocnemius and the soleus complex is very important for your walking. And so here's a way that I can strengthen it. And I'm a happy camper. The other thing you can see, look at the change in the active dorsiflexion. That to me is really a happy story, because that means when you're walking, you can activate your dorsiflexion in a greater range, so possibly you can plant your heel and have a better gait dynamic. And then, of course, the other one is a passive range, which also has a nice improvement. And here's a picture of a girl. As I say, she's doing her homework. She's having fun. This is one of our lab-based kids. And it really has a design where there's a lot of visual feedback, where you're seeing your foot goes up, your foot goes down. This was one of our high school kids that designed the program, because I kept saying, we need something than us shooting down planets. One nice thing I learned was that in Switzerland, they won't allow violent games to be made. They're doing things like fighting global warming with shooting down rain clouds so there's more water on the earth. Anyway, this is my robotic team, and if you're lucky, you'll get to meet them. They're very delightful. We're hoping to expand on a number of projects. So the idea is that robots are consistent. They always have a good day. They never go on vacation. They never get pregnant. It's like when you're working with therapists, there's a million things that are in the mix. This is what life is about. You can program for perfect practice. You can program for non-perfect. Just in case you're not having a perfect life, you can have an error augmentation, which seems to be good for learning. And they provide the feedback to the child, the parent, and also the clinicians. I think they're a very, very powerful force. They have attraction and engagement. It happens because technology is happening everywhere, and why not for us, and why not harness it? And I think that there's always a wish to cure and not to take care, but this is definitely in taking care of some small little part. Now, I do say that human touch takes precedent. I would be remiss to say that I think robots should rule the world. I think it has to be within the context of the human condition as well as the human abilities. And I think there's this best road is this combination of education, research, technology, transfer, and utilization. And there's always this push me, pull me. Let's get it out into the world and get them using it. But we also want to get the bugs out. So I'm happy to take any questions, because I'm lucky enough to have a 2-hour course on back to the basics information about this robot in depth. So please, I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you. It's very impressive and it's really exciting, this research that's coming out. I guess I had two questions. They're both related to cost. The cost of the robotics themselves in creating these systems and hospitals and rehab centers being able to purchase them. And then the second side of that is reimbursement and insurance companies reimbursing for the families to have these in the home. Where are you guys at with that?
That's a good question. We have rolled them out to about 3 off-sites out of the Rehab Institute of Chicago because we know that most people don't live on the Gold Coast. I don't either, but the issue is the cost is coming down as they improve the unit. I think they're initially it is a company where there is a patent by Rehab Tech, and they have an exhibit. Approximate cost I think is about $15,000. But I don't work for the company, but I know the guys that make them, so I could get everybody a good deal per unit. And people have purchased them. So the issue is that maybe you could have a rentable unit that went in, because this isn't something that you need to do every day. You can capture a range of motion, then you can go on with your life. Then maybe you capture another range. Or some therapy places will use it as a quick capture, and then as part of their therapy program, they'll do it like for 10 minutes within the context. So right now, we don't really have the ideal protocol. That's where I'm saying there's, let's get it out there, but do we know everything about it? The nice thing about it is the kids do not complain that this is painful. And we ask them on a Likert scale, did this hurt? Most of them are distracted. And if you ask adults with CP what was painful, half of them will say stretching was painful. So that stretching is really, because you don't know, is this really, and maybe if you're the parent, I would probably do you stretch hard, do you stretch loose, is it effective? That's what I mean, that this is really nicely controlled. Insurance reimburses at RIC. Either we're very good creative letter writers, or we bill it as intensive PT and just part of the PT session. So that's how we do it. We just say there's a lot of things you use in PT. You do E-stim, you do this. This is just a part of you do treadmill training. So we just roll it in and we don't tell them exactly what we're doing.
Any more questions?
So my child is using it right now, actually this week. How often would you do it then? Once a year?
Well, I would say it is going to be individual. I came from a wonderful lecture on personalized medicine. And so I think it has to be, I'm very interested in how much can you capture? What do you need to use to keep a range of motion and good, kind of good form? There are times when, you might need to pair it with a botulinum toxin, and that's a study I'd like to do in terms of, can this make the effect more robust? There are plenty of kids that I think they need an injection, but I can't get that insurance, so I'll send them to intelligent stretching. They come back and I don't need to do the injection. Now that's worth something, because you've just saved a lot of tears and a lot of money and a lot of effort of people coming back and forth, especially if you could just use it in home. So let's say you had a kid that needed an injection. Try this out for 6 weeks and then come back and see. It's an alternative where you're not having to intervene that way.
Thank you, Dr. Gaebler.
You bet.
Appreciate it. I know you have to run.